All right. Thank you so much for being here. This is the 6th episode of Solution Illuminators. I'm here with my wonderful guest and friend, Shauna-Kaye Brown. Shauna-Kaye Brown is the #1 Amazon bestseller author of 2020 Vision Devotional. She's the founder of Transform Nations Now, LLC, and transformational speaker, trainer, and coach with John Maxwell team, which I'm also a member. She's also an attorney at Law Human Services professional, where she serves as a program director for a transitional residence. Shauna-Kaye is the author of upcoming books, Communicate Like a Pro and Discover Your Power. The central theme of our message is transformation of followers into leaders and the manifestation of one's inherent greatness. As a leader and transformational coach, she endeavors to help great people to achieve greatness, impacting their spiritual life and social development. She helps individuals to transition from merely existing to becoming God realized. Shauna-Kaye is certified visionary communicator and dynamic leader by Toastmasters International, which I'm also a member. That we also have that in common. She inspires, prepare, and transform future kingdom builders. Please help me welcome my friend and our special guest for today, Shauna-Kaye Brown Esq. And she's also a lawyer. All right, that's why we have that there. All right, thank you for being here. I understand this is a very busy time. It's Saturday. You could be doing so many things, but you decided to just be here and accept the invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Now, yeah, thank you so much for coming. Now we're going to get into the discussion we have for today. The discussion is basically on transformational living. Transformational living. And I know you've been doing a lot of things. I've seen your videos. You're talking about one-on-one ways to transform your life by Dr. Wendier. I've seen that you've been doing that. And this is the 51st episode that you have going on. Because I've been following that. I've been following your recordings. So that is still in line on what we have to discuss today. Transformative living. What does that mean to you as a person?
Hi, everyone, and thanks again to Lou for having me. Transformational living means different things to different people. But to me, what it means is first making an assessment of your life where you are right now and coming to the realization that you're not where you want to be and doing what is necessary to get to the point where you desire to be. And if that is not enough, to be willing to do what is required.
Wow.
Now, transformation, I believe the best definition I've come across is one posited by Dr. Wayne Dyer, where he says transformation comes from two words: trans, which means to go beyond or to go past, and form, which is your physical form. Therefore, to me, transformation means going beyond the outward appearance, going beyond how people may perceive you, because believe it or not, there are thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of versions of you out there existing in different people's minds. But when you transform your life, it is an inside out process. So you work on the mind and you work on the internal part of you, whether it is through health, being intentional about living healthy, or changing your mindset to one that is positive, to one that is forward thinking, and essentially to one that is transformative. And that's how you transform your life.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. There's something that you said just now that is very interesting to me as a person. You said transformative living is about realizing that you are not where you're supposed to be and you want to be somewhere else, basically. Or you want to be better. You want to do things better. You want to improve yourself. I believe that's a group of people. we can put those group of people on the side.
Mm-hmm.
My question is about the group of people who would probably say that, well, I have the job, I can pay my bills, I can
Mm-hmm.
live just the basic way of living. I can probably afford my family vacation one time or twice in a year. How do you preach transformative living to such a group of people?
Okay, so that's interesting actually, because this is not a commentary or a critique of such a group of people. Because believe it or not, there are people who are existing the way you have described, and they're happy with that. And that is fine. If they're happy with that, if they feel fulfilled, then that is the whole point of this conversation, isn't it?
Hmm.
Because transformation is about getting to where you desire to be. So if where they are, they're happy with that, that is sufficient. Now, this conversation is for the people who have assessed their lives where they are right now and they're not happy with that. They want to
Hmm.
be somewhere else. Something inside of them tells them that they should have been somewhere else or further along. Something inside of them tells them that they can do better and they can be better, they can be more. That's who the conversation is for. And what I would say to that group of people is this: you are on your way by even already assessing that I am not where I want to be. You have already started the process. So now you have to get clear about where you desire to be. And
Wow.
once you're clear about where you desire to be, and being clear about it is not just coming to a conclusion in your mind, because your mind changes, one's mind changes all the time. So today you might wake up and say, this is what I'm going to do. And tomorrow you have a completely different perspective. Your mind changes and you cannot rely on your memory all the time. But when I say get clear about what you desire to be, for me, my process is to go to God, to understand what his purpose is for your life, so that whatever you do is aligned, is in alignment with what God has desired or designed for you. Once
Hmm.
you're clear about that, then you can take the next step. And how I get clear is that I write it down. Habakkuk 2 verse 2 says, write the vision and make it plain upon tables so that he may run who reads it. And what follows that is, once you do that, there's nothing you can ask in God's name that he will not materialize in your life. So once you get clear about it, and I suggest writing it down, then you have to now decide, what's the first step I'm going to take towards my vision. Now, what I will say to this group of people is that you should not be so caught up or worried about how. As Les Brown would say, how is none of your business. You just need
Hmm.
to know what. Because if it means that God has to send you what we call destiny helpers, or just individuals to help you on your trajectory, he will. But you have to have the faith that is spoken
Hmm.
of in Hebrews 11. Now faith, not tomorrow's faith or past faith or future faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You have to have faith now that this thing, this burning desire inside of you, has to come to fruition, and you are ready to do what is required to get there. That's what I would say to that group of people.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. You said something just now about setting out the how. It's very important to realize or to just acknowledge the fact that there's so many people that are just sitting on their hands because they seem not to know the how, and whatever they're trying to do is so big that it's it's just keeping them down, and they feel it's going to be a failure. It's going to be very embarrassing if they actually set out to do these things, because it's not going to be successful. And here you're saying that, and Les Brown, rather, you're quoting Les Brown saying that that, well, you just have to start. Don't worry about the how, because as you're going through, you figure out the how. Because if God has given you the assignment, then it's going to fulfill it. And that will lead me to this question, because now we brought in God. I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. I understand the concept of God. Uh, Jesus is the Son of God. I was raised in a church. I think you were raised in a church also. And it's easy for me to understand this. And also in your introduction, you talk about helping people to move from just merely living to living a God realized life.
Mhm.
My question is, how do you have a conversation with people who don't even believe in God? That, well, there's a purpose for you and God has a purpose for you. How do you start such conversation?
Well, Tulu, thank you for that question. I believe that's an excellent question. And of course, it is true that we are dealing with people who everybody doesn't share the same conviction that you and I do. We're aware of that. And I believe in a previous conversation that we had, I mentioned to you that I don't only read the Bible. I read the Holy Quran. I read the Torah. I read books from Taoism. I read books from Buddhism, because we are dealing with people with a plethora of beliefs. And if you want to connect to people, irrespective of what your conviction is, you have to connect to people in a way that let them understand that you are not excluding them. Ultimately, I want them to become God realized, like I said. I want them to know who the one and true God is. But there are different ways that you can get there. And what I would say to these people, which is what I will say to Christians as well, is that transformation is the same. It doesn't matter what your religious convictions are. Transformation is an inside out process. And if you wish to change your life, if you wish to get to the place where you've always desired to be, you have to be willing to work on the inner man. And what that means is you have to work on your mind. All the greats of this world that you could ever mention, they've been intentional about working on their minds. From Patanjali in the 10th century to the 21st century greats, Joyce Meyer, Steve Harvey, Les Brown, Oprah, they have worked on their minds. The ones who have passed on, Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn, they have worked on their minds. Bob Proctor, they have worked on their minds. And this is the philosophy that is common amongst these individuals. If you wish to transform your life, you have to develop your mind. If you want to go into business, how can you go into business by just saying, I want to start a business? What is a want? A want is a wish unless there is accompanied action. How do you do that? Maybe you don't have the money to pay tens of thousands of dollars to a business coach, but there are business books for $20 or less that some of these very same coaches have told you their secrets in. Buy a book, start there. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to start to be great. So you have to start where you are. You know, I love Les Brown, and he says, do what you can where you are with what you have. That's all. Because as you go along, you're going to discover the ways to do it better. And Talu, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that some people may be hindered from doing what they desire to do because they're afraid of being embarrassed. What's the worst thing that could happen? They laugh at you? Laugh with them. I laugh at myself all the time. And I'm not going to sit here and in a pretentious way and say I don't care what people think. There are times when I do, but it's not to the extent that it will be prohibitive. I am still going to do what I want to do because I have no issue laughing at myself. I laugh with you. And people have to get comfortable with being embarrassed because failure is not final. The fact that you failed at something means that, okay, that's not the way to do it. Now you know one way to exclude from your 99 ways. So even if you have to use a process of elimination to bring it down to what really needs to be done, that's fine. So you fail 99 times, but when you win the 100th time, you win big.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. We just mentioned connecting with people. And I can tell you for sure that one of the books that actually changed the way I view interaction with people was the book we call Everyone Communicates But Few People Connect by John C. Maxwell, our mentor. Right? And in that book, there were so many things that was shared there. But then I want to personalize it. Based on your own journey, how have you been able to connect with difficult people? Because we have them as co-workers, right? We have them as friends, sometimes as family members, okay? How have you been able to communicate with people in such a way that you're not just trying to always make them think you want to satisfy them every time, but then you want to have okay communication with them?
Thank you for that question. So the first thing is When you think about connecting with people, and I love that book, by the way, by Dr. John Maxwell. When you think about communicating with people, you first have to be outer directed. When I say outer directed, what I mean is that you have to make the people that you're seeking to connect with the center of your attention. It's not about you, it's about them. And when you become outer directed, it means that your listening is heightened. That's an essential part of communication. A lot of us think that we're good listeners, but we just hear. And there's a big difference between hearing and listening. Now, Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he tells us that we must learn to listen to understand instead of listening to respond. And the truth is that a lot of times when we get into conversations with other people, we're so bent on sharing our knowledge or expertise, what we believe, or opinions, which are the cheapest commodity, that we don't even listen to what the person is saying. What is their pain point? And I put it to you that when you become intentional and deliberate about listening, really listening to what the other person is saying, you hear their concerns, you hear their pain points, and now you can begin to offer up solutions. Does that make it easy? No. One of the main things you said is that you mentioned the difficult, your descriptor is a difficult people. Now in Christianity, we have something called apologetics. And apologetics essentially means defending the gospel. How do you defend the gospel? Not with your opinions. Those come a dime a dozen, and they're not rooted in facts. That's the antithesis of facts. So how you defend the gospel is with facts. You go to the scriptures. Whatever point that they're discussing with you that they don't agree with, you go to the scriptures. At the end of it, they may not agree, but you're still rooted and grounded in what you believe. It is the same way when I go to people to talk to them about communication and increasing or improving their communication skills, I use the facts. I use the facts. I do not use my opinions because those are not worth anything. Dr. Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you say and they will forget what you do, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Now, if you don't see that as facts, something is wrong because Dr. Maya Angelou was one of the greats. She has left an indelible mark on so many people across the globe. And she said that, and I took it seriously. And I'm very intentional about the way I make other people feel. Not because I'm soft, not because I'm a pushover, but I'm conscientious and I'm aware of the fact that there's a part of me in every person I meet. So even when I have a choice to be right or to be kind, I will always choose kindness. That's how I deal with difficult people.
Wow. I wish everybody can be like you.
Not really.
Kindness versus being right. Do you know how better the world can be if everybody decides to be wrong and be kind at the same time? Right? That means there's going to be less arguments, basically. Maybe more successful marriages. All right. Thank you so much. There's another thing that also came to my mind when I was preparing for this. The saying from Jim Rohn. This is saying that do not wish your circumstance were different. Wish you were better.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that talks about improvement. How does that connect with transformative living?
Well, isn't that just the point of it, though? Don't wish your circumstances were different, wish you were better. And I love Jim Rohn. Some of my strategies as it regards goal setting, I get from Jim Rohn. And I believe that if you really honestly want to transform your life, you have to rise above circumstances. Just like James Allen says, circumstances do not make a man, they reveal him. There's an aphorism, as a man thinketh, so is he. In the book of Proverbs, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. If your mindset is that I am the way I am because of my circumstances, nothing is going to change in my life because I come from a poor family. Nothing is going to change in my life because I was abused. Nothing is going to change in my life because I suffered trauma or my parents left me. If you have that mindset, then you cannot rise above your circumstances. But if you begin to wish and desire to be better, suddenly you start finding ways to rise above your circumstances. And I am not ashamed of my past. I'm not ashamed of how I grew up. And I'm always happy to share my story because I know that there will be at least one person listening who can identify. I grew up in abject poverty. Single mother, 6 children. I knew where my father was, and he was there for us in many ways. But unfortunately, my parents were very poor. Growing up in poverty, a lot of times I can see how people will not be able to see beyond their circumstances because that's all you know. And when I talk about abject poverty, I'm talking about no running water, no electricity. I don't know how many people can identify with it, but I know
Oh,
how to balance a bucket on
I
my head
can.
without holding it. And hence my good posture, right? So I'm grateful. I know how to balance a bucket on my head without holding it. I learned that from my mother because I had to carry a bucket of water on my head for a couple of miles. You know what I mean? Now, those things have operated to fortify me. And one of the ways that I was able to rise above my circumstances was through something my mother said to us children growing up. All the time she would say it. The only way out of poverty is through an education. That's what she knew, and that's what she taught to us. And so for me, I was serious, man. Anybody who knew me when I was going to school, I was a serious student, man. I
Because you
was
don't like poverty, right?
I had blinders on, you know, the blinders that they put on the horses and the donkeys. I had those on, man. I wasn't looking to the left nor the right because I was focused. I was like, really? You can get out of poverty through an education, and I'm gonna do that. And and mommy, she had all these books. She had so many books, and I would read them. I would read everyone since I was a little girl. And when I was done and couldn't find any new books to read, I would read them again. And I learned a lot of things through books and knew of a different world through my mother's books. And as I grew older and I was able to buy my own books, a whole new world opened for me. And everyone who knows me knows that books are one of my favorite things. If you want to get me a gift and you don't know what to get, just get me a good book and everything will be all right. So what I'm saying though is that when you want to rise above your circumstances, you cannot blame where you are in your life on circumstances. Yes, you can accept and appreciate that your circumstances have an influence for you being where you are. But now, how am I going to move from identifying with my circumstances to becoming solution oriented? Because the moment you do that, suddenly ways start to pop up to you that you never thought of before. How you can be industrious with your hands, how you can use your mind to create things, how you can seek to find yourself in rooms around people who are thinking and acting differently, how you can seek mentorship from people who are doing the things that you've always wanted to do. Again, circumstances don't make a man, they only reveal him.
Wow. Thank you so much. The circumstance don't make a man, they only reveal the person. That is very close to what my dad would say growing up. My dad would say that when somebody drinks alcohol, the alcohol only bring out what the person has in their mind before.
Much
But
courage.
yeah, no, it doesn't create something new. It just bring it
Right.
out so that people can see. So if you have been thinking about doing something bad, now the alcohol is going to be able to make it easy for you to do something that you're not supposed to do. That's what it does.
Interesting.
That's very close to that.
Interesting analogy.
Yeah, very
So
close.
by the way, for Tulu's viewers, we're not advocating for alcohol, but
Yeah,
I'm
of course,
joking.
of course.
No, I'm just joking. But that's a really good analogy to use because I think it hits the nail on the head. It is
Yeah.
true. And it's the same way whereby your circumstances don't determine where you will wind up. It doesn't determine your destiny, right? But it is just something that you can use as a springboard, right? Because when you get on a stage or when you get into the room, whichever profession you choose, that will form the bedrock of why you are the way you are right now. And it becomes your story. Everybody has a story. And imagine how boring your life and your story would be if you just grew up with a silver spoon or a gold spoon in your mouth and everything was just handed to you on a platter. How would you even be able to explore your facets, to find out what you can do well when everything is just given to you? And then everybody would just have this boring story. Then we'd be operating like robots. Life would be so uninteresting. So I'm happy for my circumstances. I don't know about you.
Wow. That's great. Thank you so much. And I want to clearly say that I can relate with the poverty kind of thing. I grew up very similar situation. And back in Nigeria, you're from Jamaica, I'm from Nigeria. So another thing we have in common is also we are both originally from another country, in case somebody's taking notes. I could remember growing up, my mom would tell people that don't use poverty to intimidate me. I've been there before.
Wow, powerful.
Well, that sounds really strong, but then I know what she's talking about because I, I'm her child, so I clearly understand what she's talking about. This is very interesting conversation we're having here. Now we want to switch to just know more about transformative living. Now that we're getting to the situation where people can find themselves and how it's very easy to just put the responsibility on, for example, the government. Coming from Nigeria and hearing the updates, things are getting harder, even to worship in the church. People get killed while they are worshiping their God in the church for no good reason. And it's easy to just put that responsibility on another person and say, well, what can I do? Well, even if I go to church, I get killed anyway. So what can I do with this kind of situation? So how can we still encourage such individuals that, well, it's not the end of the world. There's still a purpose for your life.
That's an interesting question because many people might be listening or from regions of the world where things are just tumultuous. You understand? Some of us, if you grew up in Jamaica, you probably came from a garrison community or constituency where it is not uncommon to hear gunmen running through your yard. You understand? If you're from Nigeria, and depending on where you are, you may be very much aware of the actions of the Boko Haram. You know, just depending on where you're from, there are different things that are happening in your life. If you're in Ukraine, I mean, we know what has happened over the past few months in Ukraine, and it's a tragedy, right? And so what do you say to people who know this as their reality almost every single day? How can you tell them that you can change your life, you can transform your life when they cannot see any way out? But it goes back to the foundation, which is what I've always said, that transformation begins in the mind. I don't know. There are so many people who will say, well, it's easy for you to say because you don't understand my circumstances. You're never ever going to be able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, but you can certainly identify with different aspects of their circumstances, whether it's because you have lived it or you have encountered individuals who have lived it or who are living it. And so to an extent, you can appreciate, empathize, and understand. You understand what these people are going through. Now, what I will say to them is that it really starts in your mind. One of the books I read as a teenager was Anne Frank. And one of the greatest tragedies that mankind has known is the Holocaust. And this book is presented of this little teenage girl who had so many first experiences while in a concentration camp, while hiding out with the family, right? Hiding from the Nazis. And this is a teenage mind. And we see how through her writing, she was able to live a life through her mind. It may not have materialized physically. It may not have manifested physically because she died at a young age from what we know. But we can see how transformed her mind was. Transformation begins in the mind. And even before physical manifestations of a transformed mind, the process has already begun. And so what I would say to those individuals who can't see the light at the end of the rainbow, who can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, is that start with the mind. Start with the mind, because we are told in the book of Romans that our future, our existence is predestined. So everything that we're experiencing and everything that we're going through, it was predestinated. So we have to find ways to traverse those tumultuous waters, because those are the things that are going to help us to leverage ourselves if we're given that opportunity of a long life. Because when we share those stories with someone else who says, my circumstances are so difficult that there's no way what you're saying can help, when you begin to share your story and you say, well, let me share something. I was in the Holocaust. I experienced a concentration camp. My whole family died. What? And I was here thinking that growing up in abject poverty was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Well, thank God I still have my family. And I guess what I'm saying is that irrespective of how bad our circumstances are, we're always going to find people who are living in worse circumstances or having worse experiences, not even getting a break. This is like their daily experience, their daily existence. And what do you say to such people? I believe I was called to those people who are disparate, those people who are disparaged, those people who feel hopeless. And what I will say to them is, start where you are, start in the mind. You have control of that. You have control of your mental faculties. Nobody can take control of that. Start there.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You just mentioned predestined, and there's a particular question that had been on my mind as to the assignments that we are given as a person, as individuals, and things like that. There are different school of thoughts to this. Some people think that there are certain things that each individual should get done, and that's what your calling is from God. That's what your assignment is. And some people will connect you with your talents, gifts, and things like that. That's what you're supposed to do. And outside that, you're only going to be struggling to do other things. And my question is this: is this predestined life like random things that almost like picking random groceries in Walmart? Or is something that is actually very predetermined before we were born, such that when we came here, the only thing for us to do is to just try to discover it? And how does that connect with transformative living?
That's an excellent question, which I think has a myriad of parts to it. I believe it is the latter. I believe that it was predestined before we were born. I believe that because it is rooted in facts. In John 15, verse 16, the word of God tells us that we did not choose him, but he chose us and ordained us to bring forth fruit that will remain, that anything that we might ask in the name of God, nothing shall hinder us from receiving it. And what that means to me is that if he says he chose us, then that means wherever you were fighting amongst that 500 million sperms, you were chosen by God to come on this earth. It is part of you being predestined to live the life that you're living right now. And so even when the distractions come and people have judgments about how you're living or why you're doing what you're doing, everything that you do must come from a place of conviction, and you have to adjust your mindset, which is how it is connected to transformative living, which is your question, is adjusting your mindset to the fact that everything that I do, I'm going to ensure or try my best to ensure that it glorifies God. That's how it is connected, because if he's saying that I chose you to live a certain life or to walk a certain path, then if everything that you're doing intentionally and deliberately is seeking to glorify God, then he's going to make the way straight for you. Now, there are different schools of thought on this. There are some people who believe the former analogy that you shared about things being random, like going to Walmart and picking up random goods. There are people who believe that. And what I will say to them is, interesting perspective. Because I'm always happy to hear another perspective, because I love to learn and grow, and I like the mind. So when someone has a different perspective from mine, I'm happy, because I really want to know how they get there. I have no problem with that. But I stand on my belief that it is preordained. And if it is preordained, even the adversities, even the turmoil, even the mountains that you have to climb were designed to be a part of that journey. Because once you're able, you're successful. Why do I say you're successful? You're successful because you have overcome 100% of all your adversities to date. So anyone who is listening right now and you're saying that, oh, my life is a failure, I'm not successful, you are successful. Because every adversity that you have ever been through until now, you have overcome them. And to that extent, you're successful. Now, what is success? Success is not necessarily having material possessions. That's a manifestation of success, maybe. But as Earl Nightingale says in The Stranger's Secret, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. As a speaker, I am successful. I am successful because I am intentional about developing myself to becoming the best possible speaker I can be. I've been a good speaker for almost all of my life, but I have accepted that good is not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? When there is great, there's a reason why they have good, better, best, or good, okay, great, whatever it is. And for me, I want to get to the acme of speaking. That's why I do John Maxwell. That's why I'm still a part of Toastmasters International, working on innovative planning right now. That is why I do Dale Carnegie and all the other areas of my speaking that I'm developing. I'm doing that because you become better every day. I am progressively realizing my ideal of becoming the best possible speaker that I can be. And I believe that that's a part of my predestined life.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. There's this conversation we had about Jump by Steve
Steve
Harvey.
Harvey.
All
Love
right.
that book. Yes.
And after the conversation, I had to go and buy the book. I'm reading the book now.
Oh, nice. We can discuss it sometime.
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a different perspective. His story is very different from normal or usual. I don't want to say normal because I can get myself into trouble. The usual, the usual line of path that people take. They go to school, they get a job. But we know, even in the Bible, it says that your gift will make room for you and it will make you stand before kings and not ordinary men, not your certificate. I think that's what that book is based on. And I have a PhD, but I still think when I wake up in the morning, there's more to life than just having, oh, I have a PhD now, so what? And it's a journey that people have to make. And so just tell us, where are you in that journey as a person?
So interesting, because I believe I can identify with you as it regards that journey. Like you, that's another thing that we have in common is that we spent most of our lives going to school.
Yes.
But I'm grateful for everything that I've accomplished.
Because we want to get out of poverty. That's why.
So far, it's working, right?
It's working.
I'm grateful for everything that I've accomplished, and I do not define myself by those things. And I think that's what, when you ask me where I am on that journey, I think that's what maybe distinguished me from a lot of people I know and have spoken to. I do not identify myself by those things that I've already accomplished. I do not introduce myself as Shauna-Kaye Brown, Attorney-at-Law. I do not introduce myself as Shauna-Kaye Brown, holder of XYZ degrees, and I have plenty of them. Because
And you
those
just
are
graduated. I saw your pictures. You just graduated, right?
Yes, but I'm already en route to doing something else. And I don't care what anybody thinks about that, because people will say, why is she always going to school? She has nothing to show for it, maybe, whatever. I don't know what they say. I don't care, because like I said, there are thousands of versions of you existing in other people's heads. What I've done already, I'm grateful for. Now I'm looking for new mountains to conquer. Because the only way I can truly help people is if I develop myself. And then once I get all of that, I'm going to give it away. Because if I don't give it away, I don't have room to take in more. It's like a bucket of water, which I think is a good analogy because you and I can identify with it. And if you have a bucket filled with water and people keep coming up to you and saying, Shauna-Kaye, I'm thirsty, may I have a cup? And you just hold on to it and you say, no, I need this bucket for myself, because if I give each of you a cup, soon it will be empty. I would say, no, that's not the right mindset. Because the more you give away, you leave room in the bucket for more water. When the rain comes, it will fill up again.
Let me cut you there right quickly. That's why, the way we started today, we talk about people who just say, well, I'm okay where I am. I don't think I want to be into this transformative living thing. I can afford a vacation. I can afford to pay my bills. Then how do you connect it to those people who have that kind of mindset? Because basically those people are actually just living for themselves. They will never engage in something like this if they're not getting paid for it.
Well, for those people, maybe that's what transformation means to them. I would still love to share my purview as it regards transformation with them, because there are always different levels to go to. And those people, I believe, would probably belong to the difficult class that you mentioned a while ago in terms of mindset. But because transformation starts in the mind, I would get to work on their minds. Because one of my philosophies is that we were not called to serve ourselves. We were called to serve other people. And if it is a travesty if we do not develop our skills and hone our skills. It's a travesty to the people that are waiting in limbo, waiting in the wings for us to come and impact them, because it's all a part of a process. We were called to serve other people. And if we don't walk in our inherent greatness, that's why I use manifest your greatness now. If we don't walk in our inherent greatness daily, then we cannot impact the lives that we were called to impact. And so those people who are living for themselves, I would invite them to a free session. I would even charge them. I would invite them to a free session just to share a different perspective. They may very well leave and say, no, yeah, I've heard it all before. I'm not interested. That's on them. I will wish them well anyway. But at the end of it, if you don't realize that you were not called to serve yourself, then you have not reached your zenith in life. And maybe you don't have any desire to reach your zenith. Because, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're told that the zenith is self-actualization. And I think that's where the world gets a little bit twisted, because the glorification of self comes to life and everything is about the self. Oh, self-care. And there's so many things masquerading as self-care, which is really just selfishness, because it is taking care of you to the exclusion of everybody else. That's not self-care, that's selfishness. Some of us need to go back and research what self-care needs so we can practice proper self-care. You understand? Then we talk about the self-made man, a self-made millionaire. How did you become a millionaire? If you're selling
that was what I was about. Are you reading my mind?
Someone has to buy it for you to become a millionaire. How are you self-made? And you're not selling it to yourself. You understand? So all of these facades and these wrong notions of self this and self that, glorifying the self, has caused people to become selfish. And I believe that we have to teach selflessness. A part of transformation is understanding the place for selflessness. Of course, you have to take care of you. It's just like when you're on the airplane and there is turbulence or something is happening and you get the announcement and it says you have to put on your mask. You're not going to put on someone else's mask before you put yours on, because you will not be of any help to them. So, of course, there is a tinge of selfishness in every single thing that we do. But sometimes it's for the benefit of everyone else. So if you have family members who are always asking you for help, you want to help them, but you know the way in which you can help them now will not have any lasting impact. Maybe you have to say no. And maybe for a time you might be the most hated one or the most selfish one. But as you spend that money to develop yourself so that you can now, and to hone your gifts so that you can now become a person of value, that people will pay for what you have, then later on, you can now help your family in a meaningful way. Now, when they come to you and they say, Tulu, I'd like to start a business. Can you help, brother? Oh, sure. Here you go. What is it that you want to do? As opposed to, Tulu, I'm hungry. Can you send me some money to buy groceries? And the next week you get the same request again. Now, let me save that money up for you so that I can give you a lump sum to do something meaningful that you don't have to ask anybody else for groceries. So that's how I would look at people like that, is just to get to work on their minds first. Because if your mind doesn't change, nothing else will. It starts in the mind. And another book I wanted to mention earlier when you asked me the question about people who blame where they are on their circumstances and are able to see beyond that because of their difficult lives. Another book I remember is Man's Search for Meaning. You know that book by Viktor Frankl? Man's Search for Meaning. He talks about his experience as a doctor in the concentration camp as well. His whole family died and what he went through. So many times he came to death's door. And that book I've read so many times because it's such an impactful book. I don't know how someone went through everything that he did and still survived to tell the tale, to write books. So that's what I would say. You have to be willing to rise above your circumstances by going to work on the mind first.
Yeah, so mind is coming up again. So we can just talk about it now. I've had some discussion about minds. I have a friend that have the establishment she has is called Mindology. My uncle, the name of his school is Mind Builders.
Mind builders, okay?
And it feels like it's very important to build the mind, because the mind is something that is very important that we cannot waste. And the question is, how one of the ways that I believe I can build my mind is to read. All right. And let's be honest, it's not everybody that is into reading, especially books, self-help books. People that are self-made, they think they don't need self-help books because they are self-made. So my question is, how can you help such people who don't believe in reading books? What other ways can they build up their minds?
Okay, so that's a great question. And fortunately for us, we live in a society where technology is very advanced, and some people are just not avid readers. The fact that I love to read doesn't mean everybody that I come across will love to read as well. So I think that's a great question. But fortunately, there are so many other means by which you can get the information that you need if you open your mind to it. So it always comes back to the mind, right? So there are many great books that are available on Audible. For example, Audible is a resource that's used by Amazon, or rather owned and produced by Amazon. And you can listen to these books while you're in your car, while you're cleaning the house, while you're en route to wherever you're going, whether you're walking, running, jogging. You can listen to books if that's your thing, because some people are auditory learners. I understand that. There are many tapes that great speakers have made about different workshops and presentations that they have done. They're captured on tapes. You can listen to those things. You can go to physical conferences and meet these people and hear what they have to share if that's your thing. Now, even the so-called self-made man will tell you, a lot of time when you listen to their stories, they will say, oh, when I read this book, my life changed. When I read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, I started to realize how important it is to take daily steps towards my goals. So even though they're so-called self-made, they're still reading Warren Buffett, they're still reading Tony Robbins, they're reading the material that's out there, and they don't always tell you. But this is what they're doing. And then people who do not like to take up a physical book and read it, they have the option of listening to things, going to conferences, going to webinars, going to workshops, going to seminars.
But they charge them a lot of money.
But some of them are free too. That is true. They charge a lot of money. Some of them are charging exorbitant sums, but they're confident that the value that they have to offer is worth the money that they're charging. And those who can afford it, they will pay. And those who can't afford it, they will read their books.
Yeah.
So you have to condition your mind to reading. If you have the ability to read, you can't say, well, I'm not like you, Shauna-Kaye, I don't read. Okay, then, so you're okay with where you are. Even the Bible tells you, no, but even the Bible tells you that when you go to a city to preach the word and they reject you, you shake the dust off your feet and keep it moving. And this came from Jesus Christ himself. There are some people who, as a coach, I've met people who I thought were not coachable, and I told them. And that is why there's a distinction between coaching, mentorship, and counseling. Because there are people who need counseling to change their mindset. So what you do, you have to refer those people maybe to see a therapist or to see a counselor. That is just the truth, because people have pain points and different things in their past that they haven't worked through. They don't trust anybody. They're not going to give you their money even if they have it, because they feel like you're just another scam artist, because they've been hurt. And those people don't need coaching. They need counseling. And you don't just grab people's money and convince them that you can help them when what you have to offer is not what they need. TD Jake says that you must find a need and then answer it.
Wow. You must find a need, then answer it. Mm-hmm. That's why people say that the easiest way to get rich or to become more financially comfortable is to find a problem and try to solve it.
That's it.
But then the problem is, when we see a problem, we want to run away first.
That's it.
And the process of running away does not allow people to think about what the solution can be. And that's a very big thing that is
Good.
really common. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier was success. You defined success. Another definition of success that I had from one of this leadership expert that I know, Reverend Dr. Sam Adeyemi from Nigeria. His book was "Success is Who You Are," and in that book, it was like describing success as a journey. In which case, you cannot actually say that you've achieved success because it's a continuous road. You have to keep driving on, and that's something that I just remembered when you were talking. Because success is something that we all have to keep working on. All right, so now, based on your experiences, you're a transformational coach and leader. What is the greatest misconception that you heard from people about transformation?
Well, the greatest misconception I've heard from people is that success is not for everyone or transformation is not for everyone. People believe that believe it or not, there are many people who believe that this is something that is secured for the select few, that some people are just born to live a certain life and then die. And I don't believe that. And I can see where the mindset comes from to a large extent, because a lot of our churches growing up, they do not teach you to become successful. In fact, some people are even to this date, as grown men and women, are afraid to talk about money because they believe it's sinful because of wrong teaching. Money is the root of all evil. Where did you get that from? Because the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. When money becomes your idol, then it becomes the root of all evil. Never, as a child, never have I ever heard anyone say, money answereth all things. Can you imagine my surprise when I found out that the Bible said that?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, they hid that from us. So I think that through wrong teaching, people were made to glorify poverty as if it is some sort of holy, what we say now, journey to take. You know, there are many facets of Christianity I know that glorifies this thing, that you should be poor. How can you be poor and pauperize and help anybody? Like, this is not serious. You understand? And they sing songs like, I'm climbing up on the rough side. And my pastor, Dr. Robinson, is always singing that song and making this point that if you're singing these songs, like, how do you expect to get out of your circumstances? You want to be climbing up the rough side of some mountain every day. Like, this is a good thing. No way. But, you know, you have to say, like, you know, Jesus is your Abba. He's your father. And your father has designed good things for you. He calls us sons. You understand? We're his family. We're his children. And if you're the children of a king, how can you be poor? So it's a matter of people being in that mindset because of the wrong teaching. And so when you ask them about transformation or success, they look at you like they're in headlights because they think that you're talking about something that is not for them. They were not meant to live that life. And I don't agree. Dr. Miles Monroe, in Understanding Your Potential, he says that the richest place on the planet is not the diamond mines of South Africa. You understand? It's not these exquisite places that you hear about in geography. The richest place on the planet is down the street from your home or around the corner from your church. It is a cemetery or the graveyard, because there you have dreams that were never fulfilled. There you have books that were never written, doctors that never did a surgery on anybody, lawyers that never advocated for anyone because they were too afraid or didn't believe that they could transform their lives. But you can be transformed by the renewing of your mind, as we're told in the book of Romans.
Wow. Renewing of the mind leads to transformation. And you just said something that one day I was coming from a very big event from one of these, I think it was Trevor Noah. I went to one of Trevor Noah's comedy events in Florida here, and I saw the way people were coming from the whole audience, and I have to ask, because I was thinking about it, like, is everybody, are we all, do we have the capacity? Do we all have the capacity to discover something in our lives, or the things that we can do that can make us attract such multitude of people? Or that just specific people that are just for some reason just lucky to have a gift to do so well, or we all have something that we have to discover. You understand my question?
Yeah.
Saying that we all have a gift and talent we have to discover that can make us really successful and impact lives, versus saying that, well, God just makes some people to be so successful and some people to serve them and things like that. What do you think?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I think it goes back to where you started when you asked about those people who are just comfortable where they are, working for 30 or 40 years and just retire with a paltry sum as Social Security, sometimes not
Mhm.
even having a pension, and they're fine. Because some people, that's their purpose. And I'm not here to tell you that everybody will listen to what you and I have to say about transformation and just automatically decide that I want to change my life and I'm going to do what is required, because some people have accepted that this is what I want, this is what makes me happy, and that's enough. So, believe it or not, the custodian of the church may very well be the happiest person that you'll ever meet, because he or she is happy being the custodian of the church. Just like we have different jobs, and someone may become a garbage collector and that they're happy with it, and they come every day smiling and just being happy to pick up the garbage and do their work, and you're like, hey, why is he happy in this hot sun acting like that? And he's singing and whistling down the road, and you're thinking, this man's crazy. But he's happy because that's what he was called to do. And that is why the Bible, in the parable of the 10 talents, everyone was not given the same number of talents. And I think the talent was like maybe money or some kind of legal tender. One was given 10, I'm sorry, 5. One was given 2, and the other man was given 1. And the person who was given 5 decided, I'm going to go out and work on this and multiply, so that when my master comes back, I can give him something on what he gave me. So when the master came back, he gave him 10. And the one who was given 2 did the same thing. But the one who was given 1, he said, I'm going to bury it and keep it safe, so that when he comes, I can give it back to him. And the master said, what did you do with what I gave you? And he said, well, I buried it, make sure it was safe, because I know that you are a rough man and you beat me up. So I just decided, let me keep it safe, so that when he comes back, I can give it to him. And he said, he was upset. He said, you know what? I'm going to take it from you and give it to that guy over there who now has 10, because you wasted it. So we have to recognize what we have been given from the inception and determine what we're going to do with that, to make sure that when we die empty.
Wow.
Your goal should be to live full and to die empty. Leave it all on the table, because the Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That's your grandchildren, man. I'm not talking about your children, your grandchildren. That's how deep your inheritance will be. That's why people write books, because long after you're gone, your books are on shelves, people are reading them. Different people make great impact. Not everybody's going to be Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos. Not everybody's going to be Elon Musk. But everybody is going to make an impact in the nations, or in the church, or in their community, or in their school, or at their job. Wherever you are, you can make an impact. And it looks different for everybody.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to be wrapping up just now. Now, please, can you tell us the services that you offer and how our viewers can contact you in case they want to pay some money to get your services?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, Talu. So the services I offer: speaking, training, coaching. Those are my primary services. I do one-on-one coaching presently, and I will soon be coming up with a group coaching program. If you want to reach me, you can contact me. My website is Shauna-Kaye Brown Speaks at ShaunaKayeBrownSpeaks.com. And I'll spell that for you. It's my name as you see on the screen. The first part of it, it says Shauna, the letter K, and Brown. So it's Shauna, letter K, Brown Speaks. with an S at .com, and the email address is shauna@gmail.com. My Facebook page is Shauna-Kaye Brown Speaks, and I'm the same name on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. So almost all the platforms, you can type in Shauna-Kaye Brown Speaks and you will find me.
Wow, this has been a very great session with my very awesome guest, Shauna-Kaye Brown Esq. She's a lawyer. We don't want to forget that. Thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy person. You've been doing so much great work. I really appreciate your presence here. We've come to the end of our 6th episode of Solution Illuminators Series on Transformative Living. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.